Hello, this is Sal. In today's video, we will be talking about configuring AAA authentication. AAA stands for Authentication, Authorization, and Accounting, and it is a system for tracking user activities on an IP-based network and controlling their access to network resources. AAA is often implemented as a dedicated server. This term is also referred to as the AAA protocol. The AAA server typically interacts with network access and gateway servers and with databases and directories containing user information. In this topology here, I already configured the interfaces on the routers, also configured RIP version 2 on the routers, so PCA here can ping PCC. So on PCA, I will run the ping command to 192.168.3.3. And also PCB here can ping PCA, ping 192.168.1.2. And if I run this command on router 1, show IP route, is showing us here. We have RIP to this network here, 10.2.2.0, and it is reaching it through this interface, or this is the gateway for 10.1.1.2, as it's showing here, and also to the network of 192.168.2.0 here through this interface, and the same with 192.168.3.0 here also. Now, on the router, I will configure local AAA authentication for console access on the router by enabling AAA on the router and configuring AAA authentication for console login to use the local database. So on router 1, configure terminal. AAA, first I need to run this command, no model, AAA authentication, login, default, local. This is for AAA login, authenticating AAA for login, use the default local. But here on the router, I will configure the username of admin1 and the secret password of admin1 on router 1. And also enable secret password of Cisco. Now, now I will configure the line console to use the defined AAA authentication method. So this configuration I configured it. This is saved here on the local database on router 1. And now I will configure the line console to use the defined AAA authentication method by enabling AAA on the router and configure AAA for the console login to use the default method list. So back on router 1, configure terminal line console 0 for login authentication. Use the default, and the default, which is what we configured as user name admin1 and the password, secret password of admin1. Now I'll verify on router 1 that AAA authentication is configured correctly, and I will exit from here, another exit, and another exit here. Username, as we said, is admin1, and the secret password is admin1. Enable, and enable secret password of Cisco. Now I will configure on the router a named list AAA authentication method for the VTY line, and the name I will choose here for it, which is telnet. Now configure terminal on the router. I will move this up a little bit. Here, AAA authentication for login, telnet, and this is for local line VTY, 5 lines from 0 to 4, and for login authentication use telnet. Now I will verify that the AAA authentication method that it is working here from PCA to telnet to the server on 192.168.1.1. The username is admin1 and the password admin1 enable and the enable secret password of Cisco. Now on router 2, I will configure server-based AAA authentication using TACACS. First, on router 2, I will configure a backup local database entry. Here, enable. First, I will configure the enable password, which is secret of Cisco. And now user name of admin 2 and secret of admin 2 on router 2. This is only for backup purposes. This configuration is saved onto the database, local database of the router to sign in. Just in case when we configure accessing the router using the TACACS server with AAA authentication, in case that the server went down for some reason or went offline, so the user can still log into the server, to the router to do his or her work. So now I configured the enable secret password and also the username. So now on router 2, on the server, here when you click on the server, under desktop, if you click on the IP configuration here, now I configured a static IP address for the TACACS server with the default gateway. If you click on the tab of services, scroll here to AAA and make sure that this on button is clicked, and the client in this case is router 2, and the client IP, which is this interface here of 192.168.2.1, and the secret we will use for the TACACS server as TACACS. And here the server type, you click here and scroll down to TACACS and then click on the add button. So we have the client name, which is router 2 on this IP address, and the key is TACACS. Now, as for the user, the local user here, we created it as admin2 with password of admin2, but here on router 2, I will use simply for simplicity reasons as user2 and password of user2. And then you click add. And we are done now with this configuration. Now on the router, we will configure AAA TACACS server IP address and the secret key. So here on the router, TACACS server host. So what is the host here? We are talking about the server of 192.168.2.2. And now for TACACS server key, it should be the same key we configured here, which is TACACS. Back to the router and the key of TACACS. Now I will configure a AAA login authentication for console access on router 2. Here, I will enable AAA on router 2 and configure all logins to authenticate using the AAA TACAC server, and if not available, then use the local server. So back on router 2, here the first we need to enable AAA new model, and AAA authentication for login with the default. What is the default here after we configure the TACAC server? Is a group TACAC, and if this is not available, then go to the local database on router 2. Now also I configure line console to use the defined AAA authentication method for console login. So we are still on router 2, go to line console 0. Now for the login authentication, here we want to login authentication, use the default. In this case, the default is using the AAA authentication, and then hit enter. Now I will verify by logging out and logging back in to router 2. So exit from here, another exit, also another exit. So now the user name, I will try first the local username, just to this, I hope this will clear the picture here, as admin2 and the password of admin2. And it's telling us that the login is invalid. But going back to the TACAC server, we should be logging in using the username as user2 and the password as user2. So back to on the router, username as user2 and the password as user2. And now we are in the router using the AAA authentication we configured on the TACAC server. But if the TACAC server for some reason went offline, then the user will be able to log in using the, as we configured it here on this command, using the AAA authentication to log in using the default. The default on the router using first the group TACAC. And maybe your other option also, you have another server, radius server. And then you can have up to 4 choices here. And finally, if nothing is working, then the user have no choice but to log in using the local database on the router. Now, on router 3. On router 3, also nothing is configured yet on router 3. I will configure the enable password, enable secret of Cisco on router 3, and the username of admin 3, and with the secret password of admin 3. This is only for backup purposes. Username admin 3 and secret password of admin 3. And I configure the enable password from the exec mode as Cisco, as you can see here. Now on the radius server here, as I said, I will show you again when you click on the server. First, go to the desktop under IP configuration. This is where I configured the IP configuration statically for the radius server with this IP address and subnet mask and the gateway. And then if you click on the services tab here on the AAA, click on it and make sure that the service is turned on. And then the client name, we are working our client in this case to log into router 3. So we type here router 3. And what is the client IP address? Is this interface here of 192.168.3.1 or the gateway 192.168 2.3.1, and in this case I'll use the secret key here, radius, and make sure that the service type here it is pointing to radius, or radius is chosen, and then click that. Now I configured for the local database here to log in as a user admin3 with admin3 as a password, but in this example, for simplicity, I will use user and call it user3 and password as also user3, just to differentiate between to make the picture clearer. Now we are done with the configuration here on the radio server, so we will do the configuration the same here on the router, and both of them will use the same key, and so the router will be pointing to the radio server here. So on the router we type radius server host. Where is the radius server been hosted? It's been hosted on this server on this IP address of 192.168.3.2, 192.168.3.2, and the radius, the key, what is the radius server key is using? As we said, it was simply radius. So now on router 3, I will enable AAA and configure all logins to authenticate using the AAA radio server, and if not available, then use the local database. First, we start the configuration by enabling AAA as a new model for authentication. Now, AAA authentication for login, and default login, as we said, we will use the group of radius. And if this for some reason is not available, then use the local database saved on the router. Now I will configure the AAA authentication for console login to use the default AAA authentication method. We're still on router 3, line console 0. Now for login authentication, use the default. Now we enable the AAA authentication and the default authentication here to log in to the router, either using the line console or BTY, or whatever is using the default, which is in this case AAA authentication. Now let us verify that our configuration is correct and exit from here. And the username, let me try admin3. And with password of admin3, and give it a second, and it's telling us that the login is invalid. But going back on the server, our user is user3 and the password of user3, user3 and user3. And now we are back in, and password of Cisco. So hopefully you learned something from this video. Please, if you like it, as I said, subscribe to my channel and share the video and give me the thumb up. And if you have any comments, please write me and I will be gladly respond as soon as I can. Thank you so much for watching. And once again, you know, the packet tracer source files for this video, you will find it in the description of this video, plus the walkthrough documents, so if you want to do it on your own to practice. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Have a nice day.